It's the Great Depression. What really happened during the Great Depression? Imagine waking up one morning rich and going to bed the same night completely broke. Sounds impossible, right? Yet that's exactly what happened to millions of Americans in 1929. No war warning, no natural disaster, just a sudden economic crash that wiped out billions of dollars and pushed the United States into one of the darkest decades in its history, the Great Depression. But how did a booming economy collapse so dramatically? Let's rewind to the Roaring Party before the fall. Picture America in the early 1920s. World War I had ended, factories were buzzing again, and the country felt unstoppable. Instead of producing tanks and weapons, industries were now making everyday luxuries: cars, radios, refrigerators, and vacuum cleaners. Cities were glowing with electricity, jazz music filled the air, and the skyline of New York City rose higher every year. The economy wasn't just growing, it was roaring. Many economists confidently claimed that prosperity would last forever. But here's the big question. Was the boom actually real, or was it just an illusion waiting to burst? One major driver of growth was mass production. Henry Ford revolutionized manufacturing with his moving assembly line, allowing the famous Model T to be built in just 90 minutes instead of 12 hours. Cars flooded the streets, and industries connected to automobiles, steel, oil, and rubber, expanded rapidly. At the same time, Americans fell in love with new technology. By 1929, nearly 10 million households owned radios. Imagine suddenly hearing news, music, and entertainment from miles away. It was like the internet of the 1920s. But beneath this exciting progress, problems were quietly building. Farmers who had once thrived during wartime demand were now struggling. Crop prices fell sharply, yet many farmers had borrowed money to buy tractors and expand their land. Instead of saving them, these debts pushed them closer to bankruptcy. Meanwhile, city consumers were developing a risky habit, buying things they couldn't afford. Installment plans, buy now, pay later, became extremely popular. Want a car or a radio? Just pay a little now and worry about the rest later. The biggest gamble, however, was happening on Wall Street. The stock market turned into a playground where almost anyone could invest. With something called margin buying, people could purchase $100 worth of stocks with only $10 of their own money. The rest was borrowed from brokers. As long as prices kept rising, everyone looked like a genius. Even barbers, taxi drivers, and shoeshine boys were giving stock tips. The Dow Jones Index quadrupled between 1924 and 1929. People believed stocks would rise forever. But here's another question. What happens when everyone bets on endless growth? The answer arrived on October 29, 1929, Black Tuesday. On that day, the stock market collapsed. Prices plunged, panic spread across Wall Street, and billions of dollars vanished almost overnight. Investors rushed to sell their stocks, but there were few buyers. Margin calls forced people to repay the money they had borrowed, and many couldn't. Suddenly, fortunes that had looked enormous on paper were worthless. The crash triggered a chain reaction. Banks had invested heavily in the market and lent money to speculators. When loans weren't repaid, banks began to fail. Fear spread quickly, causing bank runs. Imagine crowds lining up outside banks, desperate to withdraw their savings before the doors closed forever. Unfortunately, many arrived too late. Thousands of banks collapsed, and millions of people lost everything they had saved. As businesses failed and banks disappeared, unemployment skyrocketed. By the early 1930s, about 25% of Americans were jobless. Factories shut down, bread lines stretched across city blocks, and families struggled just to eat. In rural areas, the situation grew even worse when massive dust storms, known as the Dust Bowl, destroyed farms across the Great Plains. Many families packed their belongings and migrated west in search of work, hoping for a better future. For several years, the government struggled to respond effectively, but in 1933, President Franklin Roosevelt introduced the New Deal,
a series of programs designed to rebuild the economy and restore hope. Massive public works projects created jobs, new laws regulated banks and the stock market, and programs like Social Security provided financial security for the elderly. Slowly, the nation began to recover. So what lesson does the Great Depression leave us with? It shows how fragile prosperity can be when optimism replaces caution. The Roaring Twenties were filled with innovation, excitement, and confidence, but also debt, speculation, and inequality. When the system finally cracked, the consequences affected millions of lives. In the end, the Great Depression was more than just an economic crisis. It was a test of endurance for an entire nation. And while the crash brought unimaginable hardship, it also reshaped government policies, financial systems, and the way Americans thought about economic security. The real question for us today is this: have we truly learned from the mistakes of the past, or could history repeat itself again?